Assassin's Creed Mirage is looming ever closer, and as we get closer to the release date, it's looking like Ubisoft might not be able to keep its promise. From the very start of Mirage leaks, Ubisoft had promised players that this game will be taking a trip back to Assassin's Creed's original roots. However, there is a lot of evidence to suggest that the company simply won't be able to deliver what had been promised. In this video, we dive into what Mirage is actually going to be like and find out if we'll be taking a trip down memory lane with Mirage, or if it will be just an updated version of recent games with a different setting and story. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So one huge problem with Ubisoft's promise that Mirage will be headed to AC roots is that it's entirely based on Valhalla, the most recent Assassin's Creed game in the franchise. If you don't know what I'm talking about here, then let me explain a little bit further. So Mirage was actually intended to be a DLC for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. The story lines up perfectly with Mirage taking place just 12 years before the events of Valhalla. The protagonist is the same in both games, with Mirage following a younger Basim and Valhalla following a more seasoned version of the assassin. Now, this might not seem like a big deal because Valhalla was actually a pretty decent installment. However, this means that the foundation of Mirage is Valhalla, perhaps the least stealth-oriented game in the franchise. The combat mechanics, parkour, stealth features, and even world generation are therefore going to feel exactly like Valhalla. And so how on earth is Ubisoft going to keep its promise of a stealth-based game with story focus when it's working from an open world, open combat model? Now, Mirage creative director Stefan Budon did address this in a recent interview. Here's what he had to say. Yes, we started Mirage in its first idea as a Valhalla DLC, and it's quite different at the time. That idea only lived for a few weeks and only on paper. In fact, quite early, we decided to become a standalone with a full new character because we saw the potential of such a return to the roots, and it was all pretty quick. With that being said, we gotta take this information with a pinch of salt because the directors of any game are always going to make it sound perfect. However, with that being said, the fact that the project changed direction so quickly is good news for players who do want Mirage to return to its roots of stealth and story-driven gameplay. And from the footage that we've seen and other leaks from developers and interviews, we can be pretty sure that Mirage is going to be a completely unique game in its own right that doesn't feel like an extension of Valhalla. For instance, Mirage is making use of a completely new parkour system that we've never seen in the franchise before. Players are going to be able to evade guards and enemies by jumping around corners of buildings, vaulting over terrain, and even pole vaulting over bigger obstacles. We lack basic parkour moves like the vault in recent games such as Valhalla, so to see parkour gain such an emphasis in Mirage is very refreshing. I think I speak for all AC players when I say that parkour was one of the things that got us into the franchise. I mean, who doesn't want to climb up guard towers, jump down into hay bales, and jump over obstacles as you run away from enemies? It's pretty freaking cool, right? Now, there is a concern that Mirage's parkour will be largely based on the Unity system. Now, if you haven't played Unity, the parkour looked very cinematic, but the actual playing experience was pretty poor. These concerns are valid, but as long as we get functionality over fashion, parkour should be a pleasure rather than a chore in Mirage. We also got a completely new detection system in Mirage, which looks to be far more realistic. There will be 3 different detection stages in Mirage. Firstly, you'll get a warning stage, where the NPC will basically just look your way. It'll be pretty easy to avoid and act more like a warning that you're in eyesight. Next, there will be a search stage, where the guards will actually begin to look for your presence. Getting out of this one will be much more difficult. Then finally is the conflict stage, where the guards will actively try and take you out. What's more is that the developers have linked AI responses to the detection system. This means that if one guard finds you, other guards will be notified and join the same detection stage. This will help Mirage to feel all that more realistic and make the stealthy approach that bit harder. This is going to be a very welcome change after the lackluster detection system that we got in Valhalla. This was very poorly received across platforms, so it's good to see that Ubisoft is actually listening to the player base and giving us what we want. Now, despite open combat taking a backward stance in Mirage, it does look to be pretty impressive and heavily inspired by Valhalla. Combat will work off hitboxes and chip damage, with added flashy finishes to make combat look the part. In terms of unique abilities, Basim will be able to use chain assassinations to take out small groups of enemies in quick succession. He'll also be able to teleport to his enemies and take them out silently with a hidden blade. And yeah, this mechanic looks just as cool as it sounds. Now, we've seen a few leaks regarding weapons and tools available too. Basin will come prepared with a signature hidden blade, blow darts, bombs, a sword, and potentially even a dagger. So even though the objective of Mirage is to stay in the shadows, if you do find yourself in open combat, you'll have the tools to come out on top. Finally, stealth in Mirage looks absolutely awesome. Mirage is blending old stealth mechanics with modern features to make for a system that looks like nothing we've ever seen before. For instance, most of the missions in Mirage will be based on finding a target, assassinating them silently, and then disappearing. Old mechanics like blending in with crowds will be making a return, alongside new mechanics including the ability to slow down time so that you can find and track your target a little easier. Now, what was also made clear from the trailer is that the way that you choose to take down your opponents is entirely up to you. There will be plenty of angles and routes for you to perform assassinations, giving you the freedom to lean into your own playstyle and play by the rules that you yourself set. What this all shows is that there's actually a lot to look forward to in Assassin's Creed Mirage. So many people are getting caught up whether or not Mirage will be too similar to Assassin's Creed 1 or not enough like it, but they're completely neglecting all the cool stuff that we've seen so far. Mirage has one of the best looking backdrops in any of the Assassin's Creed games. And just to list some of the things it will have the best graphics, play the smoothest, look to have great parkour, awesome combat, and of course refined stealth. Now, regardless of whether it's too much like Assassin's Creed 1 or not enough like Assassin's Creed 1, Mirage looks to be a great game in its own right, and one we should be excited for, not necessarily dreading. So there is an argument that Ubisoft has kind of shot itself in the foot by making this whole entire promise in the first place. By promising fans that Mirage will be going back to AC roots, Ubisoft had just opened the game up to being compared to older installments. We've already seen fans complaining that this is just the first Assassin's Creed, or they just used the parkour from Unity, and as the old saying goes, comparison is the thief of joy. So even if Mirage is a stunning game that is completely unique in its own right, some fans still aren't going to be impressed. If Mirage is a unique title, we're going to have one camp saying that Ubisoft broke its promise and it isn't like the original games at all. But if Mirage is similar to Assassin's Creed 1, people will call Mirage a copy of the original game and say that Ubisoft is running out of ideas. Maybe this is a problem with the Assassin's Creed community, but still, Ubisoft really hasn't done itself any favors here. What's more is that because Ubisoft has made such a bold promise, the expectations for Mirage are incredibly high. Players are going to want something that they've never seen before, which is going to be hard to pull off after 12 different games that have covered pretty much every mechanic you could think of. So it might have been a decent marketing tool to begin with, but this whole promise might just ruin the release of Assassin's Creed Mirage, no matter how good it is. Ultimately, the company is just in a lose-lose situation, because Ubisoft hasn't been consistent with the theme and underlying ideas of Assassin's Creed, and there is never going to be a game that really satisfies every player. It's almost like the community is split into different camps of new fans and old fans. The old fans want story-driven, stealth-based games like the first Assassin's Creed, whereas the new fans want big, open-world blockbusters. There's always going to be people who hate the direction that Assassin's Creed is going, and we're too far into the series to do anything about that. So is Ubisoft going to break their promise of taking Mirage back to Assassin's Creed's roots? Well, kinda. Mirage is inspired by older games like Assassin's Creed 1, in the sense that the game will be far more stealth-oriented. However, with the new combat, movement, and stealth mechanics, Mirage just cannot be painted as this all-encompassing trip down memory lane. Of course, only time will tell what Mirage is going to be like, and even if the camps are split between new fans and old fans, this game still looks like one of the best in the franchise. So let us know what you think about Mirage in the comments below. Will it be another flop, or is Ubisoft actually giving us what we want with Mirage? And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out our recent analysis of the Black Flag Remaster leaks.